Hey guys, this is Religious Communities of Practice, Domain Members and Practices, a group presentation by Martisha Cooper, Derek Clemens, Darren Cox, and myself, Robert Hernandez. So what exactly is a community of practice? A community of practice is one where people share a common passion or concern for something. Through this sharing of the common passion is improved group learning and interaction. Essentially, the ideology behind communities of practice is that you stay in existence and you find a way to include new members and help all members to share information and pass along knowledge. In this sense, a healthy community of practice is designed for growth, and it is dynamic and not static. A healthy community of practice has three components that help it exist and be sustainable, and those three characteristics are domains where they function, members of the community itself, and the practices within that community. Winger notes that this concept can be extended to other areas such as organizations. Therefore, a religious community of practice can be extended to institutions such as religious, away from that which is normally a secular community of practice. Looking at the domain aspect of religious communities of practice, there are two big types of communities within the religious communities of practice, and that is the natural religious community and the voluntary religious community. The natural religious community is based on kinship ties, race, nationality, language, or geography, as we'll look at a moment with the Amish. There's really no distinction between religious and secular lives. In contrast, the voluntary religious communities are based on common beliefs, special functions, or sacred powers. It's more your traditional religions, Christianity, Catholics, Mormons. We'll talk about in a little bit also. There's a distinction between religious and secular lives. The Amish allow for a good example of the domain component of religious communities of practice. The Amish denomination was established in Europe in 1693 with the division of the Anabaptists. The first Amish settlement in America was in Pennsylvania in the mid 1700s, so you can see that there was a move from a foreign place to a more accepting place for the religion. And as you can still see, most of the Amish came to America and made their domain their place in the northeast, Midwest, Northeast, Minnesota, Iowa, Missouri, Illinois, Indiana. And as you can see, there are more than 45,000 Amish adherents in each of the states of Indiana, Ohio, Pennsylvania. So you can see there's a cluster here of a place, a domain in existence for the Amish. And as you can see here, the Amish have also grown in this area. As the population has drastically inclined from 1964, higher birth rates and registration rates of 90%, the community has exploded. In the U.S. is expected to double within the next 40 years. The number of Amish communities in America climbed from 3 in 1738 to 484 in 2014, which is an example of a prosperous domain. And again, another picture here shows you that there's a large cluster, a great domain in the Northeast, Midwest for the Amish. When we look at members of religious communities of practice, members and practice components, we see that they almost work together. And we'll kind of look at that a little closer in a moment. But one premise of a community is that there is the ability to share knowledge. The community then builds relationships, interactions, and learns. The members then develop a sense of belonging and commitment. So through learning, you develop belonging and commitment. Diversity within the groups creates its own unique learning opportunities. Instead of friction, there is enough common ground for continued mutual engagement and understanding, as Winger notes. So again, you gain membership, you practice, you become more coherent, more understanding of each other within your community of practice. The Catholic Church is a good example of how the practice and member components of religious communities of practice operate together to create successful organizations. If practice is considered, sharing knowledge and resources, and members can have diverse backgrounds and bring their own expertise to the group, Then we can see the Catholic faith, as noted by Otero and Cottrell, as a religious community practice. We see this through the transmission of knowledge in the Catholic faith and teachings. Excuse me. Adult religious education within the Catholic faith community is one example of this, whereas the Newman Center, which provides a place for Catholics to share their faith with each other, provide a support system, is also another example. You can find on the internet, there's a link below. It affects both the digital and physical worlds. That's pretty cool. You can meet up, or you can just go online and share your experiences. If we look a little closer at the members and practices components of religious communities of practice, we can see how these two relate with each other through Catholicism, initially through Catholic schools. As noted by Miller, a Catholic school should be inspired by a supernatural vision founded on Christian anthropology, animated by communion and community, imbued with the Catholic worldview throughout its curriculum, and sustained by gospel witness. What hits me here is the curriculum aspect. If you look at the community here, it all begins with the schools. You have Catholic schools, elementary, middle school, secondary schools, many throughout America with large enrollments. If we look at the next slide, we can see that there's a relationship between attending Catholic primary school or secondary schools and receiving the sacrament of confirmation, which is symbolic of becoming a member, a full-fledged member within what you would consider the Catholic religious community of practice. While the percentage of adult Catholics who receive the sacrament of confirmation by generation in Catholic school attendance has declined over time, we can still see that there is a direct relationship between going to Catholic school and becoming part of the community. Looking at the literature, some of the benefits of belonging to a religious community include a strong sense of connection and support, care, nurture, and support for members, within members, and rules for living which allow for stability and coherence within the group. Essentially, communities that are formed out of passion and or interest last longer than those instituted by organizations, which is the big benefit of belonging to a religious community. Going further with the benefits of religious communities of practice, we can see that being part of religious community of practice allows the actors to create social networks, which helps reduce stress levels, individual stress levels. So if we look at the graph here, in relation to Catholicism, we see a frequency of feeling spiritual peace and well-being among Catholics. We know that 57% of Catholics reported feeling spiritual peace and well-being at least once a week, in comparison to only once or twice a month, or seldom or never feeling spiritual peace and well-being. This sense of inner peace through social networks created by religious communities practice is one of the bigger benefits of the community, the religious community practice. Interestingly, as noted by Idler 2008, when a spiritual experience or practice helps us use our body, spirit, and mind, it also gives people positive physical and psychological benefits that last their life. So as we just looked at how the religious community practice affects us psychologically, it makes us feel communal and gives us a good sense of well-being. What that also translates to is a good physical well-being for ourselves. So there, if you think about the popular motto, it's similar to if you act good, you feel good, you act good, you behave good. Essentially, this is the case with the religious community practice. Interestingly, more so, people who attended church more often or were part of religious communities of practice were more likely not to smoke. Accordingly, looking at the charts here, we see that belonging to a religious community of practice does somewhat correlate to one's decision to smoke. For example, we look at the chart on the left, smokers by religious identification and church attendance. We see that, for example, Protestants, 34% never smoke, in comparison to 15% who smoke almost every week. In the same sense, overall, looking at the chart on the right, we smokers by religious identification, we see that, for example, Catholics are more likely to not smoke than smoke, 82% compared to 18% of its members. So as you can see, the religious community practice not only has effects on the psyche, but also on physical behaviors of its members. Additionally, if we look at adolescents really quick in regards to the religious communities, we can see that adolescents who are in a religious community of practice usually are involved in behaviors that are less risky, including lower rates of smoking, lower rates of drug use. They typically eat healthier, less sex partners, and they also wear seatbelts more often. So again, the influence of the religious community upon the adolescent does show benefits for less risky behavior and adherence to community and the community norms. So the religious communities of practice also have downsides. Many people can feel smothered or confined to living a certain way, such as women in Christian institutions where they are usually giving subservient roles, more specifically such as women in the Catholic Church can only go be non-specific roles rather than priests or more prestigious positions. Intolerance to other cultures and religions. Again, if you are part of any community, including a religious one, and there are other communities around you, you will essentially have insider-outsider behavior. Also, loss of support if leaving or deviating from the community of doctrines. Again, with any social structure or social group, if you deviate from the norms of that group, you will experience repercussions meant to, for lack of better words, put you back in line. As we can see, when there are downsides to religious communities of practice, religion in general, we see that decreased participation will occur, such as the declining number of Catholic adults in millions from 2007 to 2014, which decreased by 3.4 million. Looking forward, the future of religious communities of practice, it seems, will gain steam. Just looking at the chart here, if we look at the top 10 destination countries for Jewish migrants, we see that Israel tops the list at 2.7 million. Second place is the United States, about 370,000. So we can see that there are locations where the domain becomes a reality as people move to that community. Essentially, Jewish members exert practices within that domain, allowing for the creation of religious communities of practice. In addition, if you look at the U.S. Muslim community, you see that there is a preference for U.S. Muslims to move to Muslim communities in the U.S. at 42% compared to moving to a global Muslim community at 40%. So as you can see, it's not just people moving away to create their own domains in other areas. It is people creating areas in our U.S. culture, creating religious communities of practice which allow for the transmission of practices through members within one domain, one big location. This has been the presentation of religious communities of practice, domain, members, and practices. Thank you for your time. If you do have further interest towards religious communities and practice, there are links on this page here that can help you, can assist you in your investigation. And again, these will become important. As one last note, these will become important as we move forward within our society, noting that diversity will increase, and we will have to situate ourselves within a mindset that does offer inclusion to more than just ourselves and our beliefs. Thank you very much.